So we all know what Oneplus is, what they can do, what it offers for what they ask for, and all that. Now this is its flagship, the Oneplus 6, and this is my review on it after 1 month's use. So I really like this phone, and yes, I'm saying that after considering its shortcomings. So I have uploaded a hands-on and unboxing video, you can check that out up here. Let's talk about the hardware first. Now, there is no going around the fact that this is one big phone and it is relatively heavy. Firstly, it is because of the huge display up front spreading to 6.28 inches diagonally and the back being glass instead of metal. So yeah, that does sound uncomfortable to hold, but it is not. The glass curvature on the back, edges and the subtle curves here and there make it quite easy not to drop while holding. But of course, the limited one-hand use you have while holding a large screen on your hand is present and it does slip. I have the mirror black finish with me here and it looks freaking spectacular, at least on camera. Only if you don't have your fingerprints all over it. There are other matte finish backs available too and I found them to be more slipperier than this. So talking about hardware, the one thing I never see gets any attention is the keys themselves. They are just perfect. These buttons and even the alert slider is really very tactile and pressing them is one hell of a satisfactory thing. Really appreciate these. More things you'll find around the device is, yes, the notch, the strange dual camera setup at the back with the fingerprint scanner below it, USB Type-C at the bottom followed by the headphone jack which is here to stay for the Oneplus, and about each one of them I'll talk later on. The one thing I really like about this phone is the display. It's almost bezel-less, obviously given the notch and the subtle chin at the bottom. It is an AMOLED panel and it is beautiful. Yes, it is 1080p and it is 19:9, but anything more than that is literally not necessary for a phone. The colors are not exactly the most accurate, but they are good, punchy like any other AMOLED panel. It is responsive, gets quite bright to be used outdoors, and throughout my testing period it was fun to navigate around on. Since we are on this side already, let's talk about the notch. Now, since the start, it didn't really bother me that much to be a deal breaker for me, but the problem here stands as Android per se hasn't adopted to the notch as well as iOS has. The app support, user interface, all that feels somewhat unpolished. I mean, you do get the option to completely get rid of the notch by hiding it, and I'm glad that you do get the option to individually adjust the notch support for different apps. Thumbs up for that. Moving on. The headphone jack, well, it's quite powerful. It drives my bass dynamics with good justice, no complaints there. The speakerphone quality is also quite decent, no issues while talking on the phone, but probably the most disappointing thing about the phone is the speaker. And now I don't mean it's utter garbage or something. For that matter, if volume is your number one priority, just ignore what I'll say now because it does get really loud. But at high volumes, it noticeably distorts at some parts. It sounds a bit teeny and yeah, accidentally covering it is just too regular for me now. Plus bottom facing speakers, come on, they always cause trouble. Before I forget, I'll just quickly appreciate the cover that comes along with the box. It is a simple dark transparent silicone back case, but it is extremely well designed. Just like the phone itself, it is thick at the corners and the corners are raised. There are no sharp edges and it doesn't make the phone too heavy. During my testing period, it did save my phone from some nasty drops and gave a good secure grip while holding the slippery phone. Talking about things that came with the phone does come with a screen guard pre-applied. I appreciate that, but it is an average scratch guard. Now, as I think about using covers on the phone, same goes for scratch guards. Get rid of that if you want better touch experience. While we are at it, I just really don't like the vibration motor of this phone. It is somewhat weak, and more than usual, I missed calls when the phone was in my pocket, and yeah, it does the job, but again, it just doesn't feel too polished. Let's talk about the camera now. At the rear you have the dual camera setup, primary being 16 megapixels and secondary being 20 megapixels. Both are f1.7, so I did call it a weird setup because the pair doesn't really have much difference to utilize their potential. Both are of same focal length, both are color sensors. Now the only difference is the resolution between them. So I tried to use the phone to its limits, and I shall say I did find that limit quite easily. Now OnePlus was never famous for its cameras, and it somewhat held back its phones. Well, it isn't much different for the OnePlus 6. Now of course this is all in relative terms when compared to other costlier phones. In absolute terms, this is one great camera. Well, let me clear out the doubts. When shot on auto, the images are doing a fairly decent job. I found them to be generally colder and a bit washed out. You may not feel the same way, but in majority of cases, this is what happened for me. But the colors were not so bad. They are not completely accurate by any means, but it did justice to the scene. In good lighting, the camera was freaking amazing with really good details and dynamic range. But in dark, it is where it fell down. At challenging parts and extreme dark lighting, noise was overpowering, but under less light, it didn't really disappoint that much. Moving on, I kinda like the HDR of this phone. In the monsoon season, the clouds put up an amazing spectacle to watch, and using HDR, it's just more beautiful. It is neither too strong nor too soft, striking the perfect balance in good lighting. I really like it. I also did find the speed of taking a photo slow. I know maybe this is weird because the phone still got the shot, but in low lighting the action is just too slow. The portrait mode is there as you have a dual camera setup. Again, it looks quite artificial and I can't really say I like it, as the finished product doesn't look quite premium. I mean, more than I thought, the camera missed the subject and it had real troubles in low light. But when every condition was right, the edge detection was quite decent, and overall it did quite a decent job. Oh yeah, and the front camera, it's a 16 megapixel sensor with f2.0 aperture. It sounds good on paper, and well, it didn't disappoint me. Now, I don't really care about the front camera as I don't take selfies, but whenever I took him, it did a good job even under not so lit conditions. Unlike the photos, the OnePlus 6 videos are quite punchy. It is quite saturated, sharp, and I don't know, choppy overall. In complete auto, the autofocus was decent. It shoots 4K up to 60 FPS, which let me tell you is insane. Also, it can shoot 240 FPS slow-mo at 1080p, which extends to 480 FPS at 720p. All this sounds amazing on paper, and luckily it is. The videos are quite good looking, and shooting slow-mo is just too fun on this device. Here are the specs, well, the relevant ones at least. As I've said earlier, this phone comes in two variants, the 6GB RAM with 64GB storage or the 8GB RAM with 128GB storage. I have the 6GB version here. And let me clear this out first, it is still smooth. The difference of 2GB doesn't make the 8GB model a Ferrari or something. There were no speed drops at any point of my usage in this 1 month, and it handled every task and some intensive gaming very smoothly. The OnePlus got its name as it gave the phone at a cheaper price for the specs. One of that is the flagship SoC. Yes, it has the Snapdragon 845, which is just insane to have at this price. It is flagship for a reason, and I'm glad it is here. OnePlus has a really cool software. I won't say much about here because it's almost pure vanilla skin on top of Android with some added features, which is what everyone likes to use. I personally love the whole interface, and using swipe gestures for navigation is something I absolutely love doing and got used to it quite quickly. OnePlus managed to do all this while keeping the whole basics intact. Absolutely love it. Now, talking about speed, there are two things that reminds me of what speed is. First being the fingerprint scanner. It is so fast that I just forget I'm even using it. It is also fairly accurate, and throughout my testing period it did a spectacular job. Secondly, the dash charger. It is the best thing that a OnePlus phone has. Never did I ever worry about charging this 3300 mAh battery that got me through a day's intensive use with breeze, with decent juice left for the following day. And the best part is, you can get all that in under 30 minutes charge. But I don't know why there is no wireless charging given the glass back. Now, I personally don't mind that, as I'd prefer the dash charger anyways, but if that is something you really want to have, you may want to move on to the next phone. OnePlus recently added Face Unlock to their phones, and I must say, it is stupid fast. I did love using it, but it is somewhat unsecure as it literally unlocks at weird angles and doesn't even scan your face in 3D. So even your photo can unlock the phone, but it is still fun to use, so yeah. And that is my review for the OnePlus 6. leave a thumbs up down below if you like this video. Let me know in the comment section down below if you have any questions. I am Samyak Bakliwal here. Thank you for watching and I will catch you guys later.